First of all, on our schedule today is Public Service Commission.
There you are, ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's wait, and we're going to wait and sort of let them get settled in. Thank you, Commissioner Eden, and we have with us too Terry Puckett, that's the budget director, and thank you for coming. And anyway, go ahead and present, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. We're also joined by Deborah Flanagan, our Executive Director, Jada Brock, who's in charge of IT, and Bill Edge, our Public Information Officer. So thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members of the committee, for allowing us to come by and present on the 2017 budget. The Georgia Public Service Commission is a vital contributor to economic growth and development in Georgia. Over the last few years, major manufacturers who have relocated to Georgia have cited the state's reliable and affordable energy costs as a key reason to moving here. In the governor's 2017 budget recommendation recommends a total of $507,000 in state general funds to fill 4 vacant positions and recruit a 5th position. The governor recommends $358,000 in additional funds to fill 3 different utility analyst positions in our utility regulation unit, and $40,706 to increase the funds to recruit an engineer analyst position that was funded in 2016. One of the unfortunate parts of lower unemployment now is we're having trouble actually recruiting for the position at the pay that was given for it. To take care of upgrading and replacing our regulatory software and replacing our aging computer software, the governor is recommending issuing $1.8 million in 5-year bonds, of which $416,520 would be available in fiscal year 2017. We very much appreciate the recommendation from the governor and OPB responding to our critical needs, as the commission faces a number of ongoing critical dockets this year and beyond. 2016 will be an exceptionally busy and complex year for the commission as we continue to monitor the massive ongoing Plant Vogtle nuclear construction project. You may have read the company has also gone into a settlement on some of their overruns. We will have to, or at least we've put in motion the plans to deal with that this year. On Plant Vogtle, we have a integrated resource plan in 2016, which is a statutorily mandated 20-year plan where we sit down with the power company and go over their capital spending projects for 20 years out. That's always a very involved process. We will have a Georgia Power rate case. Obviously, that's a very important case. And we will be examining the Southern Company acquisition of Atlanta Gas Light as well this year. Taken to also an ongoing, we were having to deal with the Clean Power Plan out of the federal government. Although the state of Georgia, amongst a number of other states, have joined in a lawsuit, we have to at least plan and go forward as if that plan will be implemented so we don't get caught behind the 8 ball. So the commission, we've simultaneously opposed the plan and also worked on ideas to implement it, and that's becoming very time consuming as well. Of course, the remainder of the governor's recommendation are adjustments across all state agencies for merit raises, insurance premiums, and TeamWorks billings. So specifically, on the recommendations, so we're looking to fill a position at the Plant Vogtle construction monitoring, also looking to fill one to analyze the environmental mandates. That would, Clean Power Plan would fall under that, amongst many other mandates that just continue to come at all the states from the federal government, the unilateral mandates that federal government ignoring our state sovereignty, but we have to deal with it. We fill a vacant utility analyst position in utility regulations to track the Southern Company acquisitions of AGL and several other rate case proceedings expected through 2020. That's $105,000. We looking to fill a vacant position in administration with an applications developer to work on cybersecurity and other applications developments and maintenance. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the additional funds to help recruit the position that was funded in 2016. So, and then I also mentioned the $1.8 million in 5-year capital bonds as well. The commission, in addition to the vital role we play to the state's economy, our agency does contribute to the state treasury. Since 2002, the commission has sent over $49.4 million to the treasury, and this does not include the annual assessment that utilities pay to the state treasury of $1,000,050. So, in summary, we sincerely ask that you support these recommendations as the commission begins examining and deliberating issues of vital economic importance to our state, and we thank you for your continued support.
Well, it sounds like you've got a very, very busy year ahead.
We do.
Do I have any questions? I don't see a single question. Thank you, and thank you for the job you're doing.
Thank you as well.
No, not a bit, not a bit. Department of Agriculture. Let's see what. Thank you, Commissioner Black, and you can proceed anytime.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It's good to see you all this morning. We're going to be operating off page 16, section 13 of the tracking document. And then if you want to put your finger in another place, it's page 103 back on the bond side. Ours is
Wait. We've got a different tracking. Tracking sheet. Page 1 of 12.
Well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Matt. As long as we're on the same page.
On the same page.
That's the goal. Thank you. We are certainly very grateful for the adjustment and all the merit pay increase opportunities to be for our team, and you can see them delineated under. We have 3 primary program areas that are the direct operational program areas of the department: Consumer Protection, Department Administration, then Marketing and Promotion, and those figures are clearly there in the governor's recommendation. We appreciate your consideration of that. Let me also thank y'all very much. We got on our, if you kind of remember, we started on what we hoped would be a 3-stage approach to getting us out of the basement when it comes to our employees, and y'all have been very responsive to that. We appreciate. Of course, 2 years ago we had a very nice package that got our starting salaries up. Last year, a little bit of an enhancement on that, but just for a matter of a progress report, if this is in software terms, if we were shooting for 3.0, I'd guess we're at about 1.3, and so there's not really been any adjustments in this budget that fit along with that plan. So we'll always ask. And y'all have been kind, so if there are opportunities to enhance that along the process, we would appreciate it. For case in point, let me talk about just from a progress standpoint. 2 years ago, here's a job announcement for us that went out this morning. It's for a wholesale fuel calibration inspector, and this will be one of our inspectors that might be at the airport, anywhere that's not retail. So it'd be a person at the pipeline, so to speak, or at the airport. Anywhere there's, and that's the person making sure that a gallon is a gallon, but it's just not at retail. Thanks to y'all's help, we've got that starting salary now is announced this morning at $2,383 a month. So, that's $28,500. But if we were in here and I made this announcement to you 2 years ago, that would have been just shy of $1,800 a month. And so, while we've made great progress, and it is helping us, and you say, well, wait a minute, if that's such a great deal, why are you bringing it up? It's just always, we still got a ways to go, and that we need to celebrate progress, but at the same time, every consideration you can give us on these particular things is, because that's based out of Atlanta, a $28,500 a month job or a year job is still below where we'd like to see our goals. We'd like to get up in the 30s on these starting salaries, and I don't think then you're going to wind up with a certainly a better quality employee, and somebody might make a career with the state. So as you move forward and have those opportunities this year and in subsequent years, we sure would appreciate, and we promise you we're going to be good stewards of that. I think our record shows that. With respect to our bonds, we do have a small ask for you on there, and we talked about this kind of a joint committee earlier in the year. We have a $500,000 request for vehicles, and that, Madam Chair, we talked about some flexibility with our bonds, because typically our language in the bond language has always been just tied to our farmers markets and just those capital. And we're hoping to have a little more. We've been told by OPB that the language is sufficiently flexible with the $500,000 on our vehicles, but the other $500,000 request that we have is for our markets, and what we always, that's for maintenance and operation, and we have to have those to just kind of keep the trains running on time. But what we are going to ask, and I thank Tracy for her suggestions and leadership all along this way, is to see if we can get some language that allows us to have a little flexibility in that language, just in case there's a piece of equipment we need to buy. We've been cash flowing those types of things when long ago we should have been bonding them, and that this is something that's been pointed out during the process this year. And if we have a chance to adjust that language, and if y'all can be favorable on these two bonds, we sure would appreciate it. That's where our ask is, Madam Chair, is we've been fortunate most every year, at least on the M&O side, to have $1 million for the market system, and this year it's just 500. So if we have any capacity to grow that, if the committee would give us some consideration on that, we sure would appreciate it, because it's a mammoth task. The markets are doing real well. We're more profitable than ever and more efficient than ever, but we still have the typical leaky roof and those kinds of things that need to be addressed, and we've got to have the resources to do that so that we can keep these, particularly the Atlanta market is a strong economic engine for Atlanta. And I don't know if some of y'all may have been able to be with Chairman McCall the other day on a quick tour. It's a lot of good things going on there, and a lot of good things can happen in the future if we'll just maintain our facilities properly. So, Madam Chair, that's about all I have, and love to answer any questions the members of the committee have them.
I've got one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
On your bonds, it had something about 25 vehicles.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you want that changed or something? Did you tell me to?
No, ma'am. The
One
vehicle,
time, did I remember you asking us to?
Well, what we're told is that when we discussed this earlier and it came out 25. What we've learned from OPB is that is flexible. That language is sufficiently flexible that if we're fortunate enough to buy 29 with the same money, it's okay.
Okay.
We were a little concerned that 25
I knew
just
that
meant 25.
You'd said something to me sometime about changing that
Yes,
language,
ma'am.
and I wanted to.
Yes, ma'am. If I remember the instruction correctly, is that they put 25 so that we wouldn't go buy 14. I mean,
okay.
You said,
yeah.
Yes,
okay.
ma'am. And that's we didn't exactly understand that reasoning until we had it sufficiently explained to us by then, and then we said yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have some questions. Representative Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
I was just curious, I know those markets are a large economic impact in some of our areas. What kind of revenue do they bring back to the state?
Representative Watson, it's I'll get you the exact net number, but let's break it down this way. There are and when we say minor markets, that does not mean the Moultrie market's minor, because it's major in Moultrie. But there's the secondary markets, and then there's just Atlanta, which is in a class all of its own. We've been very fortunate and been very aggressive over the last few years. And let me break them out this way. Macon is one tenant shy of a break-even situation. Cordele, we've made substantial progress. Cordele is going to be difficult to ever make money there because it's such a seasonal market, but we have full-time, it's open year-round. That's what I think a lot of Representative Hardin and other people would want to be. Valdosta's good and flush, good folks there. Savannah is good, it's pretty good. It's on the top side. Cairo, we've got it up in a profitable situation. Columbus and Augusta are other difficult. They don't cost the state any money, but we're basically a tenant for things that are not particularly related to a farmer's market. And there's some side things. If anybody want to have questions about that, I can tell you why that wound up being that way over the course of time. It's about long-term contracts that were signed before we got here, and some of that will be up next year, and we'll be able to change that business model pretty quickly.
Wait just a minute. When did those contracts come up?
One is the Augusta. The main one there is Columbus. Columbus comes up next year, and there was a contract signed 10 years ago that will be up next year, and it says this: that we're going to give this market this 32 acres under the control of one person, and that contract was signed that said, if you'll just tell us what you made and give us 10%, that'll be sufficient for what the rent is.
Okay, thank you.
If you can understand my dismay when I discovered that contract, because that is not the way to do business, but it's not a contract. I've looked every way, which way to try to get out of it, and I can't. But we've already met and informed them to go ahead and be making other plans when this contract comes up.
One other question.
Overall, Madam Chair, can I ask, when you get back, we're going to be in the overall net pretty close to $4 million, Representative Watson, for the whole market system. And of course, the thing to remember, and we won't open up this keg of worms today, but we've had discussions over time. So that money does go. It goes to the bottom line as service in the long-term debt, for sure. It pays the notes. But it's the other balance of that goes back into the Treasury. And I still think long-term business model, the notion that we have to have a 20-year bond to pave a parking lot that lasts 7 years is not a good model. And if we could ever, get in the commitment or have a good plan and we've got some plans to do this, but if we could be enabled to do it, to have retained earnings so that you could have this M&O that where we could just keep these things up and not be borrowing 20-year money on things that it makes. If y'all remember, I think the first presentation that I made to this subcommittee 5 years ago, and we had just discovered they were paying 20. They were using 20-year bond money to buy light bulbs, and that's a ridiculous business model. But thank goodness we're out of that, and I think we'll have a good report card on our management of it. But thank you, Madam Chair.
Well, and one other thing too, having an inland port in Cordele, has that helped anyway?
No, ma'am, not with the market.
Not with the market.
The only thing that, our relationship with the inland ports primarily on the plant inspection with our plant division. I have talked with Representative Harden a time or two. It's been a couple of years. If business in that port, inland port, continues to rise, there may be a need for a dedicated inspector to that facility, but we're not there yet.
Okay. And thank you, Representative Dudgeon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. I agree with you with the frustration sometimes of the way the government does budgeting and applies money. Across the board, I think we could do a better job with that.
Yes,
but my question's around the marketing area.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, it's roughly a $5.8 million area, and there's $100,000 for merit raises. It seemed like a high percentage of salaries. I guess I just don't understand probably how you guys do marketing promotion. Does most of that go out for advertisement or publications, or I guess not? You're shaking your head, so
No,
I just
sir.
don't understand it.
No,
So
sir.
what is most of that? How does most of that get spent?
Well, there's a pretty sufficient, and I can get you the exact number of employees that we've got in.
Yeah.
So it's pretty focused there, or with the operation of these markets. Then we have within that division our auditors for our commodity commissions. There's the commodity commissions that are out there that work with the farmers. We have a small nucleus of people that work and have some relationship with the Georgia Grown program.
Okay.
That's not new funding. Those are that's kind of a revamping of our marketing efforts coming under Georgia Grown. The only thing we've got that are direct appropriations for Georgia Grown is what Representative England put in a couple of years ago, about $100,000.
Now, just wondering, just when I see marketing, maybe it's my business hat, I think marketing usually is is lower on people and more on other expenses. Do you know what I'm saying? But it sounds like you've got the way you've got your accounting stuff is a little bit different. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if it, from a business model standpoint, if it'd be okay to expound on Georgia Grown just a second. The purpose of the way we built Georgia Grown, and y'all helped quite a bit 4 years ago, is we formed a commodity commission that people vote on every year, decide whether they want a license to use the logo. And then those dollars, dollar for dollar, go back into the Georgia Grown Commission, and that underwrites some of our activities that is above and beyond state dollars. And to show you that business models work, we started just opened business 4 years ago, and we've got over 750 license holders now. And I don't think we haven't even begun to touch the sky where we can go.
Awesome. No, I support the Georgia Grown program.
Yes,
This is more, I've got my accounting hat on.
Yes,
That's
sir.
all. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thank you, sir.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, appreciate all the good work you do. I honestly think you run this department like you do your own business, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Thanks, sir.
And that Representative Dudgeon kind of touched on what I was going to ask about, which was Georgia Grown. I know we had put that $100,000 or so, which was the first public dollars into that, but that's a good bang for our buck, I think, and so appreciate what you're doing there.
Thank you.
My other question was concerning the avian bird flu, and I know y'all have done a great job of being proactive there, and I know that costs money to get ready for that. But are we out of the woods there?
No, sir. We're not out of the woods. We, if I can frame it this way, Representative Shaw, and with all my heart, I'll tell you, we started asking the Lord to deliver us in June last year, and you know what? Up until this morning, we don't have it. I'd rather be at the end of this and praise Him for it. And if I had that may not be my choice, but that's right now we're in excellent shape. At 9 o'clock this evening, this morning, the high path avian influenza, if you will, SWAT team or leadership team, that gathering is every Tuesday morning. I wish I could transport y'all over there for just 10 minutes to watch the team in its daily and weekly routines. You'd be very proud of the the professionalism, whether it's in the animal, the office of the state veterinarian, or the other people in our logistics team, and then the outreach, the different incident commanders that we have, and section chiefs that have been assimilated under this structure. We've got over 200 of our 600 employees that are trained in emergency response when it comes to this particular deal. And if we have to go into action, we will. Now, on the side of expenditures, my CFO, does the number 72,000, does that ring a bell? Yeah, I think if you're looking at the ancillary costs that we've just absorbed, that's kind of some supplies and odds and ends and PPE for our employees and some things like that we've spent thus far. So I'm not anticipating we were not comfortable coming here and tell you, we need $600,000 to get him, because we've been in constant contact with, of course, with the governor's office and OPB and keeping everybody informed. If we get a major hit, there will be overtime. There'll be some big things, big bills come due. Might wrap up this, and if anybody's got another question on AI, we did have the first, everything in Iowa and Minnesota was H5N2 last year, and that was the virus that just wreaked havoc. 49 million birds went down, and price of eggs tripled, so it was a big deal. The H5 virus is nowhere to be found right now. Now, what was discovered about 4 weeks ago in Indiana was H7N8. H7N8 is typically a low pathogenic virus, flu virus, but in one house it mushroomed and it morphed and became highly pathogenic. It was discovered very quickly. There were 9 other premises that had the H7N8 that were determined not to be high path, but all those other 9 premises were put down. Thus far, there's been no other H7N8. There's not even any thus far in the wild bird, in the hunter kill and the observations that have been going on. A highly pathogenic virus has not yet manifested. That's a better way of putting it. And so, I'm suddenly a real big supporter of global warming, because if it'd go ahead and get hot, we know this virus would go away. So I'm a temporary supporter of temporary.
I've got a couple of questions if
Yes,
you're
ma'am.
through. Okay, first of all, I've been concerned, and I think we've had other people in agriculture concerned about the veterinarians. We don't have enough veterinarians in our state to take care of the large animals. Are y'all working on a plan, or does that come under you? Or
Madam Chair, we'd certainly be, I don't know if we're on the tip of the spear, but we're surely on the team. And the whole, if there were ever an opportunity to fund our friend and former colleague, Representative Maddox's repayable loan program to encourage food animal veterinarians, I think that would be a worthy investment. That money pays back. It's ultimately not, I don't think, even a cost to the state, but it's just that upfront money. I'd encourage the committee to take a look at that. It is it's a big issue, because one would hope that if you choose an accounting profession or anything else, that would be your heart's desire and you'd do it with a passion. You got to have a double dose of that to be a large animal veterinarian, particularly with if you had to borrow a bunch of money to go to school. Mm-hmm. and those kinds of things, because large animal veterinarian, the return on investment is not going to be as high as a small animal practice, and that's the pressure that some of our students and graduates are facing right now. So, yes, ma'am, it's critical, and kind of turn it back to us. It's a little critical for us too. We need a couple of we've not asked, but we're in the point of one of these days of having to replace our infrastructure of veterinarians too, which gets us kind of back to our salary things, because when you advertise a veterinarian position for, I don't know, $58,000, something like that, that's a little tough, particularly if you wanted to go for a younger person that would have a career. The trajectory of that's not very promising. So, but yes, ma'am, it's an important thing. We do promote it. We'll write occasionally. We work with GVM, the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association, certainly with the lab networks. Everybody knows it, Farm Bureau and others that have this as a priority. We certainly urge you to consider the seriousness of the situation.
And one other question, you mentioned the vet labs and everything.
Yes, ma'am.
The vet labs in Tifton and Athens. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're just pass-throughs, is that right? Who sets up the contract? Who makes the contract with the lab?
Well, I mean, it all goes out of our finance department, and then the leadership within the lab network, we meet regularly. We look at what the needs are for the coming year. They make their individual budget request. It's tied to us, just simply like the fairgrounds or the poultry diagnostic labs or the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. It's really more of a place mark on the ledger than it is actually us, doing the day-to-day work. But there would be of course, Dr. Cobb's intimately involved with those services that are provided.
It just seems like we've cut and cut, and they really haven't gotten back up to where they were before times got real hard.
Yes, ma'am. And they have some. I'm fully aware that they have some equipment needs. They face some of the same. We're all in the boat together and all face the same family of challenges, that's for sure.
Well, I appreciate the job you're doing. You're doing a great job, and thank you so much. And any way we can help, let us know. And we'll be trying to work out something about the vets, okay? Thank you.
Thank y'all.
I guess we have no other questions. Okay. Next, soil and water. What page is it on? So we can.
It's attached to ag, so it's right down.
Okay.
It's on page 2.
It's on page 2.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Brent Dykes with the Soil and Water Conservation Commission. I have Dave Eigenberg, our Deputy Director, with me also today, if we have any additional questions. We're going to be under, as Tracy mentioned, under Department of Ag, Section 13, item 13.7, as an attached agency for administrative purposes. You'll see under that the traditional changes across most agencies, merit system assessments, and also DOAS and TeamWorks billings and adjustments there. We're also in the governor's budget for providing funds for merit-based increases, employee recruitment and retention, and we're very appreciative to the governor and OPB recognizing the need for salary increases and retention activities. That figure there is just a tad over $49,000, $49,090. I would like to make the committee aware of a total personal services need of about $80,000. We've been working within the Soil and Water Commission to be sure that employees are in the proper pay grades based on their responsibilities. Of course, over the multiple years of downsizing in government, we've shrunk from an agency of about 65 down to 37, but we're still doing the same amount of work. So we've asked some of our staff to step up, as all agencies have responsibility-wise, and compress some of those duties down to remaining staff. So taking into account the governor's $49,000 in his governor's recommendation, we're about $30,000 short of implementing those pay grade changes that would affect about a third of our employees. It would help us realign those employees and help them with the duties and responsibilities and aid us with retention across the agency. The other item I'll mention and bring your attention to is in the bond package. There's a $6.7 million bond related to the rehabilitation of flood control watershed dams in multiple locations across the state. That will allow us to work on approximately 2 dams, depending on bid cost, to help bring them up to new safe dam standards. Just to remind the committee, there's some 300-plus dams across the state. Half of those need to be brought up to safe dam standard, anywhere from $1 million to $3 million each for those type of activities. But that would be a request to work on multiple sites across the state for $6.7 million. Madam Chair, that's the majority of what I wanted to discuss, unless there's any questions.
Do I have any questions? Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Dykes, Madam Chair. My question is, I think recently we had questioned some of the way your water meter reading program works. Can you?
Yes, sir.
Y'all partner with another state agency to help with that? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The water metering program started was first passed in legislation in 2003, started in 2004, and has been funded since then by the One Georgia Authority. It's similar to what most agencies would treat as a grant. Each year we go to One Georgia, make a budget request through OPB and the governor's office, and then have received funding since 2004. We currently partner with several agencies, but predominantly the Georgia Forestry Commission on meter reading. They've been reading meters for us for multiple years based on a per-site basis. Yes, sir.
And do you know what the total cost of that, how much do you get from One Georgia to administer that?
The total program this past year, or excuse me, the current budget year is a little over $1 million.
Okay. Approximately how many meters is that?
We have at least a tad over 12,000 meters across the state.
Are we still putting new meters in?
We are replacing meters that are broken. When we go out and do the maintenance, we replace those meters. But as far as placing new meters in new sites, no, sir.
And so the replacement is used that same amount of money?
Yes, sir. Replacement cost in this current budget is a little over $200,000 of the $1 million.
Okay. So what do y'all pay forestry to? I mean, are they reading? My understanding is they're reading most of the meters.
That's correct. In a 4-year cycle, the Forestry Commission each year reads 3/4 of the meters in different quadrants of the state. In the other quadrant of the state, we read the meters and maintain the meters. And currently, the current contract with forestry, which is negotiated every year, is $10.50 per site for a successful reading, with a 10% bonus for $11.55 if it's finished by a date in December.
Do you think that they can do that for that amount of money without coming out of pocket on their end?
That'd be a question for forestry. I understand from talking with them and the governor's office that their costs do amount for more than what we're paying. Yes, sir.
Well, I guess let me get to the bottom of it. I mean, seems like there's more than enough money that you're getting from One Georgia to administer all this. So I think we need to go back and look at that and find out, because it looks like y'all are only paying forestry, not near as much as what, and I'm just wondering where that the rest of that money's being used.
Well, we have $350,000 that are spent out of the $1 million for 5.5 staff that run the program, 365 days a year, where we're going out inspecting new meters that have been installed by farmers for new permits, also answering customer service calls for any meters that need to be replaced during the season, and doing our own meter maintenance also. As I mentioned, a little over $200,000 is spent for new meter purchases to replace those that have been broken. $50,000 in meter maintenance repair costs and those types of things. But certainly, we've had conversations with forestry and understand the concern there, and have had conversations with the governor's budget office also, and we will be working on that. Yes, sir.
So y'all are spending $350 on the 5 employees?
5 employees for the full year. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Brent. I guess Representative Shaw, Chairman Shaw, touched on most of my questions. But I guess that's 4, 5, 6. That's $700,000 right there. Where's the rest of it?
The other costs, I'll be glad to provide the committee a full budget detail, if that would be helpful, Madam Chair.
I think it would.
Because we have to, with One Georgia, it's a reimbursable type agreement, so every month we have to show expenditures, so I'll be glad to provide that.
Oh, I think we would definitely like to see it.
Yes, ma'am.
And I think we've talked some about these meters, and I think when y'all renegotiate with Georgia Forestry, I'd like to see that the meters that they can't find, I know they have a cost associated with tracking those down. They're using y'all's GPS coordinates, and a lot of the technology's changing. Yes. Some of them are digital. They can't read them, or they just can't open them.
Yes,
and they can't put those on their sheet, so
Okay.
they're not paid. So
Absolutely,
y'all
we will
could-
be glad to address that. We hold training each year. We've provided GPS units to the Forestry Commission this year at our expense, but there are other
Ne-
things that can be done also.
Now, do y'all do contract with Georgia Rural Water for GPS or something?
No, ma'am, I don't have any contracts with
You don't have
Georgia
any
Water.
contracts with Georgia Rural Water? With Georgia Rural, you don't have any?
No, ma'am, I don't have any agreements with Georgia Rural Water Association. No, ma'am.
Okay. All right, the next thing, there were 578 meters that you couldn't find last year.
That forestry or the commission could not
Could
find.
not
yes.
find. Okay. Do you just take those off, or do you go back the next year and look for those same 500?
No, ma'am. We assign our staff when reading season is over, which is usually December or January, to go back out and look for those sites. And we found half of those, the 250 plus, in our second look again. And the other ones, we work with the farmer. A lot of times, as you know, commodity prices over the last several years have been fairly good. Farmers have expanded their operations. They've added additional irrigation systems or changed the irrigation system, and meters have been moved. We're not knowledgeable of that until we go out to look for them, because the sole responsibility of the program in finding the meters bears on the commission, not the farmer. That's the way the program was set up. So we try to communicate with those in the field about where it's at, but a lot of times we're not aware of that until someone goes out for the annual meter reading. But we do continue to look for those, Madam Chair, digitally and also in the field, and work very hard to find those.
Well, what do you do with this information? Who do you turn it over to?
The water meter and information is provided over to EPD for the water policy planning and other things that are going on. Certainly the lawsuit between Georgia and Florida, this information has been real helpful on the Flint side, but this program covers southeast, basically anything south of Macon.
And it also covers all over the state, doesn't it?
Yes, ma'am, it does, but
Yeah.
predominantly very few meters have been placed north of Macon
Yeah.
because the funding wasn't there for new meter installs.
All right.
Can I have one
Yeah,
follow-
Representative Watson.
On this meter chart, of course, I'm in the Flint district, and I was
Yes,
looking on here. Of course, I represent Colquitt, Tift, and Thomas. Colquitt and Tift are on here, but Thomas is not on here, and I noticed Mitchell County is not on here as well. Is there a rotation that are they being inspected by?
Right.
Is that why they're not on the
Yes,
Georgia
sir.
Forestry list?
It's bordering counties, depending on where the line splits. The commission may read them one year, and the next year the Forestry Commission may read them. That'd be the only reason. They're all read annually and maintained every 4 years.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Dudgeon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A little different question. We had a small dam fail in Forsyth County and got all muddled up with EPD a few years ago. And when you mentioned you've got a bond here to do work from soil and water, but I was curious, who's really responsible? Is that the EPD thing? Or where are y'all involved in the whole dam
Sure.
process? Because that kind of confused me a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Soil and Water Conservation Commission is involved with watershed dams or flood control dams based on dams that were built 50 plus years ago through a program called the Small Watershed Program.
Okay.
Those dams are built on private property, earthen dams, where easements, perpetual easements, were granted by the landowners at that time that carry through on the deed, where the dams are maintained and operated by the state through the conservation districts that we work with. So the bond funds that we received are working on those combination of 300 dams. Now, we're not actively working on 300 dams at any one time. 1 to 3 dams per year is what we do. In your instance, I'm assuming that's a private dam. That falls back on whoever the landowner
That's
or
right.
property owner is.
And that's why it got to be a big mess. I was just wondering
Yes,
whether, where your, I guess, line of responsibility. So it's only those old dams grandfathered in under that flood control when you did a particular program.
Yes, sir. And we have to comply with the Safe Dams Act just like the
Yeah.
private landowner does. And that's
Okay.
what we're doing with the bond funds, is trying to comply.
And how do you pick which of the, because there's more dams that need work than
Right.
there's money. So how do you pick which ones?
We
you're gonna do?
prioritize based on the number of homes and infrastructure downstream.
Okay.
Should the dam fail, which hope to good Lord it doesn't happen, but if it did, how many people would be affected? And we try to prioritize based on existing engineering reports and assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Do I have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Georgia Forestry Commission.
Next one.
Good morning, Madam
Y'all can
Chair
find it on
and
page
committee. 8.
Excuse me. Commissioner Ferris, it's nice to have you here today, and thank you, Brenda Neal. And one other person I want to thank in the Forestry Commission is Joanne Warren. Thank you, Joanne, for getting us these books regarding the surplus program. You worked hard on it, and we do appreciate it. Go ahead, and we'll talk about that later on. Thank you.
Thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to review the governor's and GFC's FY17 budget recommendations. On my tracking document, the budget starts on page 46 at section 26.
Page 8 on theirs.
Page 8. Across all program areas, administration, management, and protection, that's lines 26.1, 2.1, and 3.1, all reflect the governor's recommended statewide 3% personal services adjustments for merit-based salary adjustments, recruitment, and retention. And again, across all program areas, statewide common adjustments for merit system and due-as adjustments are reflected in lines 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and then again in 2.2, 2.3, 3.2, and 3.3. So statewide common adjustments. I should point out under administration, line 26.15, that is a budget neutral move due to the reorganization and restructuring of supervisory responsibilities within our IT program. Under that line, you see an addition of $161,739 to administration. And then if you'll look down under management at 26.2.4 and protection 26.34, you can see that what we're doing there is transferring our 2 existing GIS positions under our IT director and administration. Hope that makes sense to y'all. Again, budget neutral change there. Line 26.4 shows our tree seedling nursery and tree improvement program. This program receives no state appropriations and operates off of receipts and other grant funds. And I want to point out that a zero-based budget review was completed on a reforestation program this year with no fiscal changes recommended by the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. I also want to point out that through our work with tree improvement co-ops, we've increased the volume production of our pines coming out of our seedling nursery on a range of 30 to 45%. 30 to 45% improved volume. This is adding millions of dollars to the pockets of Georgia's landowners. In fact, North Carolina State Tree Improvement Co-op recently calculated that the net present value of the work we're doing at our Arrowhead Sea Orchard there contributes $113 million to Georgia citizens. It's a huge bang for $0 there in that program. Lastly, I'd like to point you to our bond proposal on page 103 of my document. That's bond 92, line 50.2.3.92.
Page 5.
So page 5 on your document. This is a $1.8 million bond to replace 2 of our old worn-out Cessna 182s. And in your book that Joanne has provided you on the front inside cover is a 2-page briefing.
What, has everybody gotten the book?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's a picture of a plane on the front of it there, the inside cover, and that warrants a little explanation. We have 4 fixed-wing aircraft that are at or have exceeded the 10,000-hour airframe standard. This summer, our Chief of Forest Protection and our Chief of Air Operations did a detailed study of our air ops and, working in conjunction with DNR, presented a proposal to the Governor's Office basically replacing 2 of our old fixed-wing Cessna 182s with the seats that are outlined in your package there. Single-engine air tankers. Heavy-duty crop dusters is what these planes are. And along with that plan, we'll transfer our Bell 407 helicopter, valued at $1.8 million, to the DNR to replace one of their smaller, older helicopters. And this helicopter will be placed in St. Simon's Island. In a nutshell, following the establishment of the Georgia Aviation Authority and then the changes that occurred after that, transferring the equipment and air resources back to the agencies, we simply in the Forestry Commission don't have remaining infrastructure to most efficiently maintain a rotary wing program. So we've been working with DNR as far as partnering with them with maintenance and support of that existing 407. And we'll continue to maintain that collaborative effort with DNR and Georgia State Patrol, providing them with fire control tactics and training, and also providing their helicopters with buckets for water drops, hooks, and other equipment. In the document in your book, you can see the advantages of seats. They require 43% lower initial capital investment, 58% lower operating costs. They accommodate 2 times the volume of water and retardant, and have a greater airspeed. And on top of that, the Forestry Commission has existing pilots. Experienced pilots can fly those planes with little additional training. This is a great plan, and we really appreciate the governor including it in his bond proposals. And at the end of the day, we're saving the state tax dollars and will be much more effective and efficient with implementing our air operations under this plan. That concludes my review, with the exception of 2 documents that Madam Chair has asked me to provide the committee. The first is a white paper on our firefighter property program that the GFC established a little over 3 years ago with no additional personnel, I might add. Our folks simply put on another hat to implement this program. Through our federal firefighter program, FFP is what we call it, the GFC screens and procures surplus federal firefighting and emergency response equipment, predominantly for our rural fire departments, but also for ourselves and our sister agencies. And you can see, looking at the first page of that book, the GFC has now procured nearly $62 million in firefighting and emergency response equipment in a little over 3 years. $47 million of that going to the rural fire departments, $14.5 million going to GFC and other sister state, for example, brine trucks for the DOT to spray on snow and ice. And we've procured 31 heavy trucks that we've taken in, repainted, outfitted for fire control purposes at a value of over $5.1 million and saving over $3.2 million in equipment replacement costs for the Georgia Forestry Commission, which is a good segue to the final requested document. Again, in the inside cover of your book is a blue and white table. And this table outlines our current state with our equipment replacement schedule, and then shows additional equipment that will come due to be replaced over the next 5 years. That is equipment that exceeds our replacement schedule of 20 years on crawler tractors and 200,000 miles on our Type 6 and Type 7 fire engines. And the point being there, to kind of help you read that table, what that's showing, for example, under crawlers, we have 70 crawler tractors over 20 years today in FY16, 49 heavy trucks over 20 years, 12 fire engines that have over 200,000 miles on them. And then the next line shows FY17, so we'll have an additional 5 heavy crawlers that come due, an additional 13 heavy trucks, an additional 4 engines that will exceed those replacement schedules. So right now, as far as 2017, we stand at an estimated cost of $26.5 million to replace the existing equipment that is beyond replacement schedule. And I guess the point in this chart and what we're trying to get at, if we don't regularly replace our firefighting equipment, what this shows is at the end of 5 years, we'll have a staggering number out there of $60 million to get our equipment back up to date. So if the House and Senate have any discretionary bond funds that can be utilized while maintaining the governor's bond recommendations, we could certainly use help in addressing these critical issues. Madam Chair, it's the end of my report, and I want to thank this committee for their support of forestry and the support of the Forestry Commission.
Representative Watson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just because you just mentioned that while it was on my mind, you're not able to do any kind of lease program with any of your equipment where you keep it for a certain number of hours or time frame and rotate it and turn it back in, or has that been looked at already?
We can do that. Over the years, we've done repeated studies looking at lease versus purchase. And unless you're replacing equipment on a regular basis, very similar to leasing cars, over short time frames, it's much more cost efficient to actually procure the equipment.
Okay. Well, I started knowing tractors these days. It's cheaper for us to lease them and turn them back in than it is to actually own them. So that's why thank you.
I might add on that point, I'd mentioned our schedule we work off of or work towards is 20 years. Quite a few of our neighboring states have a 15-year replacement schedule on their heavy equipment crawler tractors. So we try to squeeze every ounce of them that we can out of them.
Well, you've done such a good job of getting excess federal property. Are there any crawlers that you see coming across?
Yes, ma'am. We have actually been able to procure a couple of crawler tractors and then spend some additional funds and outfit them for fire control operations. Tractors we use aren't your typical land clearing tractors. They're outfitted for fire control purposes. But they are far and few between. We've had better luck, as I mentioned, procuring the heavy trucks that haul those tractors and have procured 31 of those.
Great, thank you. What about the, like when you fix these trucks up for, say, Department of Transportation, how many trucks did you fix up for them?
We've provided DOT with a dozen trucks, and there's some pictures of those about 8 pages in. 12 5,000-gallon tankers and 11 truck tractors to pull those tankers. And then again, we painted those and plumbed them and outfitted them so that they can be utilized for spraying roads during ice and snowstorm. The value of those vehicles is approximately $2.5 million.
Well, do you get reimbursed for the labor and everything, or does that come out of your budget, the work that you...
The way we do that, 4 pages in are some examples of the equipment that we bring in. And then sometimes fire departments will re-equip or repaint and work on those trucks ourselves. Sometimes we'll do the work for them. And as outlined in the pictures there, that's the type of changes we make. And in those cases, working with rural fire departments, we charge our cost in reworking those.
Do you charge your cost to DOT, or how do y'all do that?
I'm not sure, Brenda or Michelle.
Or just a good neighbor, it could be, working across the...
Well, we try to be, these things...
Well, it all comes out of the same pot eventually, so I guess, I'm just real pleased at what you've taken this program to the next level. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director, thank you for what y'all are doing. I want to go back to last year when we were able to help you a little bit with some of your, y'all had if I remember, it was around upper 30s on your turnover rate on your first 2 years on your Rangers. With what we were able to do last year, can you tell us how that's helped, if it's helped, and if so, what your turnover is is looking like now?
Yes, sir. We certainly appreciate the governor and General Assembly's assistance with our pay parity adjustments. We were able to get all of our field level fire control related positions up to the target we were shooting for of 85% of market salary. I'm remembering some numbers off the top of my head here, but 2 years ago when we came to this body to discuss this, in December, we had 54 ranger vacancies we were trying to fill. 2 years to date, this past December, we had 4 ranger vacancies we were trying to fill. We saw a 33% improvement in reduction in the number of resignations from our rangers year to date. If I did a year, I just got a report yesterday of some additional ranger resignations. That number might not look quite as favorable today, and that certainly has helped. And again, the 3% recruitment and retention funds that the governor's proposing will help further. But just plain and simple, as Commissioner Black had mentioned, we have a very tough time competing with industry and with federal and county government. So we've still got some challenges out there with retention of our rangers.
Okay, one further question, if I can. We talked about it with Soil and Water earlier about the program that y'all help with reading the meters, and y'all are getting around $10, $50, $11 or so a meter to check them. So I would encourage you to get with them and look at that figure, because it just seems to me that you're not getting enough to cover your cost out of that.
Yes, sir. We have gone back and looked at that figure again. We entered into this agreement with Soil and Water, as we enter into agreements with State Patrol and DNR and other agencies, to try and ensure that we most cost effectively and efficiently address the mandates of the governor, the mandates coming out of this body and code section. As we entered into this agreement with Soil and Water, the thought and idea was we've got resources out there throughout the state. We work with those farmers on a regular basis, plowing fire breaks, doing burn assist, developing management plans. We know those folks. As y'all are probably familiar, again, as this program rolled out, there was some animosity amongst the landowners and government folks and strangers coming on their property. So that was, again, another part. We know these landowners, work with them regularly. Bluntly, we were less likely to get shot than somebody else coming onto the property. And we were effective and efficient in doing that. Over time, the number of meters we've read has changed significantly, starting from 5,000, 6,000 up to 7,000, 8,000, and projected to increase again this upcoming year. Long story short, we have met with Soil and Water, with OPB, and discussed our current estimated cost per meter read, and that's $16.80 per meter.
And you're getting how much? $10.50?
$10.50 plus a bonus if we got the.
And you're not getting paid for the ones you can't find, the 578.
No, ma'am.
Yeah. I would suggest when you do your contract, you might want to think about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
One other thing that of course, I like this firefighter property program. Can you continue? You've done this. You've brought in to the state $62 million with the same personnel. Can you continue doing this for the same amount of personnel? Can you increase it? We're still not number one in the state. We're still trailing Arkansas and a lot of other states, even though we're fourth in the United States in getting federal property. Can you do it with the same personnel?
That's a good question, and something we've been struggling with over the past year, really. believe it or not, an EPA and Department of Defense agreement regarding vehicle emissions shut us down for a while, shut the program down. And resulting from that, with congressional involvement, helping to address some of the issues, there's some new rules and guidelines has come out of DOD on procuring this equipment. It's called Q6, coded equipment. That's resulting in a large amount more of administrative work to maintain the records and transfer that property. And actually, with that Q6 equipment, we have to maintain it on our inventory now and then go inspect it annually. So that's a lot of additional cost. We're trying to work through the best way. This is just recently in the past few months that we've been addressing this. Best way to address that. And I can't give you a figure. I can tell you that other states, some of those leading states, have full-time designated employees to those programs. For example, Oklahoma has eight folks assigned. Other states have 6 to 4 full-time equivalents working on the program. All of ours is done with folks with collateral responsibilities and duties. We have no single individual dedicated to the program. We are likely going to have to dedicate at least 1, possibly 2 people full-time to maintain the level we're at. To grow it may take more than that.
Any other questions? Are y'all? I mean, I like this program. Do I hear any other? What'd you say, Representative Pete? And I'd like to see it continued, and I'm sure everybody would when we can pull in $62 million and on the same with the same staff. Thank you. And I see that Oklahoma has pulled in $120 million.
Yes, ma'am. They're the ones with 8 full-time dedicated staff to the position.
Well, I'm pleased with 62 with no dedicated staff, and it sounds great. But I do understand that you might need additional things, and I think we need to take that into consideration. And thank you for contributing this to the state budget. Any other questions? Thank you. And now we have Dr. Keith Harris and Dr. Doris Miller from UGA College of Veterinary Medicine. And also Mr. Rogers. Sean Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for inviting us here this morning and allowing us to plead our case. I'm Dr. Keith Harris. I'm the head of the pathology department in the College of Veterinary Medicine at the University of Georgia. Part of my responsibilities are the 2 veterinary diagnostic labs in Tifton and Athens. Sean Rogers is the Director of Finance Administration for the College of Veterinary Medicine. And Dr. Doris Miller here is Associate Director of State Government Relations for the college. He's also a veterinary pathologist and former director of the Athens Veterinary Diagnostic Lab and has actually worked at both diagnostic labs. The mission of the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab Service, which is part of the College of Veterinary Medicine, is twofold: provide diagnostic services to veterinarians, companion animals, and the livestock industry, and conduct disease surveillance among animals throughout the state of Georgia to protect the agriculture, economy, and public health. And I just want to comment a little bit on disease surveillance. You touched on it a little bit already with Commissioner Black with high-path avian influenza. A big piece of our mission is disease surveillance. It's something that is not obvious. It's kind of like an insurance plan, but it's one of those things you really want to have because if you don't have it, the outcome is a lot worse. Good examples of that in the last year, just a few examples, is porcine endemic diarrhea, canine herpes virus, primarily in the Atlanta area. We just diagnosed equine herpes virus 1 unfortunately, at our teaching hospital, so it's under quarantine now. And then we're part of the avian influenza task force that the commissioner talked about. And regarding influenza, first, you mentioned that Dr. Cobb, he's a state veterinarian, is managing that. I think you would be really proud of the way that's been managed by pulling in a team of resources to proactively be ready for an influenza outbreak. And I just want to add to what the commissioner said about the potential of an outbreak. We may not have one this year, but for those of you that know how influenza viruses operate, in other words, the way they mutate and the way these birds, primarily geese, that migrate from the Arctic through the flyways down south, they go to the Arctic and they basically, the virus mixes up, mutates, and they bring they could bring high-path influenza south. So it's a matter of time, I believe, before we have one. It may not be this year, but we're going to have to be continuously vigilant going forward. And the key to surveillance is catching diseases fast. If you don't catch them quickly, as you well know, then it gets outside the box and you've lost control. Again, I mentioned porcine endemic diarrhea at a show about this time last year. Fortunately, we had the test on board. We recognized it could be coming to our state. We were ready to test for it, and we were able to nail it down before it spread beyond that. Same thing with the equine herpes virus. And by the way, so the labs are doing the diagnostics, then it's up to Dr. Cobb then to do the tracking and the quarantining and staying on top of the diseases. So it's a very close relationship we have with the state veterinarian and the Department of Agriculture. But I just wanted to hit the surveillance because that's not always so obvious to see, and it's probably one of the most important things that we do. And back to influenza, the state poultry lab has the primary mission of surveillance on influenza in commercial poultry operations. The diagnostic labs have surveillance in backyard flocks, and they work with others in wildlife as well. And they have to work together, of course, to identify any outbreak. And there's a good chance it may happen in the backyard flocks before it gets to the commercial labs. And the labs working together, the labs work very closely together. The actual capacity, probably 2/3 to 3/4 of the capacity for disease surveillance lies in the diagnostic lab. So if we actually do, heaven forbid, have an outbreak, it's going to take the resource and capacity probably running 24/7 of all labs to address any outbreak. Anyway, I just wanted to review the surveillance piece. So what we're requesting is a 6%, approximately $200,000 in state funding. And as the commissioner mentioned, it's attained through a pass-through contract with the Georgia Department of Agriculture. And this is above the amount needed to cover any salary increases. And this would cover the escalating cost of biomedical supplies and diagnostic reagents, and cover personnel costs for the highly skilled people we have to have in our laboratories. A couple comments on that is, one, the cost of medical supplies and equipment far outstrips the cost of consumer price index. So the consumer price index could be flat or 1%. Biomedical supplies is going to go up 5 or 6% a year. We're using the same supplies they use in hospitals. And of course, you guys know what the cost of medical care is. And of course, there's more reasons for that than just supplies and equipment. And the same thing holds true for our technical folks. Our med techs, for example, work in clean path labs. They also work in clean path labs in hospitals. Histology techs, same way. And then we also have to compete with private industry. We believe if we were able to get this infusion of funding, it'll stabilize our financial situation. For those of you that heard me speak before, we've been kind of a tenuous financial situation for a number of years. The equipment bonds that we've been able to obtain the last 2 years and have been largely through your help have been a lifesaver, because it's allowed us not to have to divert operational funds to purchase replacement equipment or new technology. The 2016 state budget funding is still 17% lower than it was in FY 2009 when the budget cuts began. And in addition to the the 17% increase, if you couple that with the increased cost of the supplies and equipment we have to buy, it's much more draconian than just a 17% less in cost. And so far we've been able to address it. Early on we addressed it somewhat by increasing our fees. You're probably aware that about half of our budget is through service fees, and but we pretty much maxed that out. If we go too high with service fees, then our surveillance programs start to suffer. I think you can appreciate that. If people don't send cases, we can't do surveillance. And so we're pretty much maxed out there. We've also cut some faculty and staff at both labs, and have improved efficiency. Some of that is through processes, and some of that is through technology. And I think that's pretty much it. We believe we're confident we can get through this year with what we have. Going forward, again, we've got enough people to get the job done right now. We don't have much surge. We don't have very little surge capacity, and there's a lot of things we'd like to do we can't do with the current personnel. And I also want to add that if we're not putting money away into an account to replace the equipment, we'll be in the same situation we are now in 2 or 3 years. In other words, we'll have equipment we can't replace because we don't have the funding in our operating budget. That's all I have.
Do I have any questions? Thank you, and thank you for coming, and thank you for the job y'all do.
No problem.
I think that's everybody. Unless somebody would like to make a comment, we've got a few extra minutes if somebody has something they'd like to say. Thank you. Have a good day.